Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Hajim Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, Andrew Bartolotta.
Welcome back to the City Current Show, where we bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good in our community and around the globe. I'm your host, Andrew Bartolotta, and today we're joined by Ed Hajim, a Wall Street veteran, philanthropist, and author. Ed's story is one of resilience, ingenuity, and the relentless pursuit of success against the odds and adversity. Ed, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Let's start off. Your early life was filled with tough situations, hostile environments, which is discussed heavily in your book, On the Road Less Traveled, An Unlikely Journey from the Orphanage to the Boardroom. How did these experiences prepare you for the challenges of the finance world?
Well, I found out very interesting. I tell young people who have difficult upbringings or childhoods that basically they are lucky, because if they make it to 18 or 19 and on to college, they had those disadvantages which occurred in their childhood become advantages. Let me use you one example. I was in 15 to 20 different places before I was 18 years old. Hotel rooms, motel rooms, foster homes, YMCA at 34th Street, and a couple of orphanages. That built an adaptability into me that I could really adapt to almost any situation. And in business, as you know, situations come up which are hard to adapt to. I mean, early on in my career, before it was really opened up, my firm wanted someone to go to Japan. And so I said, I'll go to Japan. And I was able to adapt to that experience. The same thing later on, and actually when China was opening up, I went to China for Lehman Brothers when I was there. And also adapting to different circumstances, coming into a situation which is brand new, you're not afraid. I always kid myself. I went to 5 different Catholic schoolyards. And when you adjust to a schoolyard a couple times, you learn how to adapt pretty quickly. That's adapting. Also resilience. You go through difficult situations. Resilience is a muscle. And if you learn to use it, it gets better. And then, of course, you have to persevere. And all those 3 or 4 things give you a certain self-confidence that says, I can do it because I did it. And I think those are the things that help me in my business world. Also, you have terrific empathy. No matter who you interview, you basically can relate to them. Because I obviously lived in a very fancy community to being successful, so I could relate to those people. But I could also relate to the first gens and people like me as a child. So the empathy, and you can't get that unless you've been there. If you don't know what hunger is until you're hungry.
Well said. I think that when I look at some of the people in my lives, either personally or in business, those that endured a lot growing up definitely are more empathetic. They adapt to new experiences that can be uncomfortable for others way easier and better because they've already been through uncomfortable situations. They've flexed that muscle of resilience, and so to be able to do that is great. And unfortunately, many people in our nation and around the globe unfortunately have to experience adversity, but it does make you stronger. You grew up without a present family. You sought mentors. How have mentors really influenced your life and your approach to leadership in your professional life?
Mentors are vital. And early in my life, because I didn't trust anybody, I didn't trust some of the real important mentors. I listened to them. The last orphanage had a man called Reuben Koftoff, who was terrific and very interested in me. And he mentored me, even though I didn't want to be mentored. But later on, in fact, at college, I started to recognize that's what I needed. And all through my life, I believe mentoring is so important. And even in business, I tend to try to get younger people mentored by older people. And, in universities, absolutely mentoring is necessary. I'm involved in a group in Boston now that is training freshmen first gens so that when they get to be seniors, they can mentor the freshmen. Because, the only way you mentor is having been there, done that. And I think that mentoring is just vital. And almost everything. I just wrote an article on training. And you say, what's training? I said, well, it's mano a mano. It's one-on-one. And even if you're a drill sergeant talking to 100 young recruits, each recruit's got to feel that you're interested in them as that person. So I think the mentoring is vital. There's been a study done in Houston, Texas, about a professor at Harvard who went into the worst schools in Texas, and he basically hired or put in an advertisement in the paper for mentors, and he took those mentors and put them in contact with the kids in these very poor schools, and all the schools input order of magnitude change in things like teenage pregnancy and college acceptance. So mentoring is very important. And I'm involved in another group in Boston called Wiley, and they are absolute mentors. What they've done basically is a woman who's just absolutely terrific, started about 5 years ago with 5 students. She has 75 and she's going to 200. They talk to really important schools like MIT and Tufts and so forth, and they contact the financial advisors there. And when a student comes in who's first gen, they sign up with Wiley, and Wiley gives them a mentor, which they must talk to once a week, just like talking to your parents. So that seems like a lot, and it seems like it's not a good, not overdoing it. But during COVID, these kids had no place to go, so Wiley became vital in placing them, in places. It's not in a hotel room, placing them with a foster family or something. So I think mentoring is vital. I mean, it's something that has to go on all your life. By the way, I mean, I feel right now one of the great satisfactions I have is being involved in university and mentoring young people. In fact, my book, Island of the Fourth Ps, is basically a whole mentoring mentality. I'm trying to say to young people, when you cross that line between 18 and 19, when you end up arriving at a new job or your first job or college, you have a chance to really understand who you are, and you need help understanding what's going on.
And having someone that's been there is vital to then know that you're not alone and you can relate to. And mentoring is a huge part in helping people as well. For you, helping people realize their ability to excel has been a huge passion of yours throughout your career. Can you share how you've fostered environments that encourage excellence and teamwork, and how you provide mentorship to others?
Well, I go through my 4 Ps. I try to get people to basically find their passions. You'll pardon me for this is a cliche. It's my book, The 4 Ps. Find your passions. Try to establish your principles, the rules you want to follow. Get the partners which will help you do your job, and then write plans. I believe in writing things down. And then, in many respects, my strategy has been a young lady when I created a humor magazine at University of Rochester said, "Ed, you're a delegator," and I believe very strongly in giving people the tools to do the job and letting them do it, because that's the way they get satisfaction. And of course, the most important thing in mentoring is to never take credit. You can accomplish almost anything if you don't care who gets the credit. And in mentoring, you make sure that the person you're mentoring takes almost 100% of that credit and tries not to give any of it back to you, because what you want here is to build confidence. But I do that's been my secret is basically desiring to help people do better than they could. And that's been my I didn't realize it. I found it out first in college when I started putting people together, which I love to do, but also helping each one try to do better than they thought they could. Not everybody can do that, but that fits in with making sure you don't take the credit and mentoring. When you mentor someone, you basically want that person to do better than they thought they could, and you want them to take the credit.
That is very good advice there, especially with mentorship and knowing that you want your mentee to take 100% of that credit and build that confidence. That is key to their long-lasting leadership. You are a philanthropist and you have been able to give back to so many, which is really cool to see from starting out your story and now being able to help and provide scholarships and really, really help people excel. How do you decide which causes to support? Talk about your foundation and what impact you hope to achieve through your contributions.
I break life into 4 parts: self, family, work, and community. Community is the 4th part, which is giving back. And it is something you do maybe a little later on in life, but it is the final leg of what I call the 4-legged stool of life, because if you don't give back, you don't get the greatest satisfaction out of your life. So in many respects, it's maybe the reason we're put on this planet is to give back. And of course, you start off, I think, with your own community, which was in my case, University of Rochester, where it was my first home. I mean, the first place I ever went to, which was home, and they, I graduated as a chemical engineer, and I mean, it was a horrible start because I had I was in a black leather jacket, and I had all the wrong social graces and so forth. But in 4 years, I had enormous experience. I ended up being in the Senior Honorary Society, which was only 12 men at the time. And they graduated me as a chemical engineer, and I got a commission as the United States Navy. It changed my life. It was a transformational. So obviously they have gotten a great deal of my effort. I was also a trustee there. And what I say to people is you should, give back in different ways. But if you get a chance to really head up something where you can accomplish change by both your time and your resources, it really is a winning situation. I became the chairman. I was trustee for 20 years. I became the chairman of the board, and in 8 years, and I give the president all the credit, he did the work, but we raised more money in those 8 years than they did in the previous 150 years combined. And this is a university with a $4 billion, budget and, 30,000 employees, and it's been around since, 1850. And we basically re-engaged the alumni, which they thought they couldn't do, and changed the whole world. Now, I obviously gave the largest gift in the history of the university, which was, not as much as people think, but it allowed me to produce, 20 scholarships a year for 4 years. And there is nothing like someone standing up on a stage and saying, this woman, my poster child, she's absolutely spectacular. She's now got her PhD in optical engineering, but she was in the middle of her bachelor's degree. She stood up on a stage and said, if it wasn't for you, Mr. Hajim, I wouldn't be here. I mean, what else do you want in life? But I've gone farther than that. All of my children's schools now have scholarships with our name on it. But education, in my mind, is the solution to everything. And I've gone actually one step further. The Nantucket Golf Club, which was just a golf club 25 years ago. Today, it's the largest charity on the island. For 20 years, we put 2 kids in college. About 7 years ago, we started what they call vocational scholarships, which I call now professional scholarships. Last year, we gave 15 professional scholarships. We now have 60 kids as a result of the generosity of our members. We are now no longer a club. We are an institution on the island, the largest charity. So, and you get terrific, satisfaction when a young man stands up and says, I really wanted to be a chef. I couldn't go to Johnson Wells without you guys. And, and then his mother and father come over and give you a hug. I mean, I don't know what else there is in life. I mean, at my age in particular. So, philanthropy has been something that's, when you give something, you always get back more.
Quickly talk about the 2 books that you wrote, and then where people can go to read them and support your efforts.
This is really my autobiography. It's On the Road Less Traveled. It's a story that almost reads like fiction. I mean, for a kid that basically, I spent the first 3 years with my father, and when they got divorced, my mother got custody. She took me to St. Louis. He came and got me, kidnapped me. For the next 15 years, I spent times in hotels and motels and orphanages and foster homes, and some of which were Dickinsonian and so forth, weren't very good. So, the last orphanage was fabulous because it was near a wonderful high school. It's in this thing. Also, I spent a reasonable amount of time on my family. I mean, in many respects, I had no family. So one of my goals was to make sure I had a family. Now I have 3 children, all of which have master's degrees, and I have 8 grandchildren, which I'm very proud of. But this one here is basically a fable. It's called The Island of the 4 Ps. I wrote a fable rather than a how-to-do book because I think a fable, if you look back in history, is one of the great ways to communicate ideas. And what's important about it is that it does what a fable does. It traps you into doing your own thinking, which is really what I want to get across to people. Great books about your life basically trap you into doing your own thinking. As you go through the conversation of the book, you will find you will start referencing your own life. When they leave the village of passions and they start to climb up the mountain to the village of principles, I didn't realize climbing up the mountain is exactly what you have to do to get your principles. And so I've kind of got that the second or third reading, and it's very interesting. So those are my 2 books. You can get them on Amazon, also Simon & Schuster. You can actually go to my website, which Ed Hajim, citycurrent.com. My goal is to get young people, especially that 18 to 25, to really start to think about who they are, and it's very important, where they want to go, why they want to get there, how they expect to get there, and then to test out those theories that they develop.
Well, Ed Hajim, thank you so much. Your story is a beacon of hope, but also a blueprint for achieving one's dreams through determination and a positive spirit. Ed, thank you so much for coming on the City Current Show. We really appreciate you.
Thank you for the good questions and for having me on the show.